Hello, in this video I'm going to do some example symbolization problems. So here we have 2.6 LRS 65. Ronald will run, but Sally doesn't sing if and only if Vince vanishes into the dark. So we have the word, we're going to look for the logical vocabulary. So we have the word but, we have the contraction there in of doesn't, and we have if and only if. So this doesn't is just going to be, negates just Sally sings. But we have to decide, should we symbolize the but first or the if and only if first? Is this sentence a but sentence or is it an if and only if sentence? Well, it could be either, but the comma tells us, without a comma, it would be ambiguous. The comma tells us that the sentence breaks here. Right? We have Ronald will run on one side of the but, and we have Sally doesn't sing if and only if Vince vanishes into the dark on the other side. So we can break it there. Without the comma, we could also break it. We could say, well, if the if and only if is in the middle, then we'd have Ronald will run, but Sally doesn't sing would be one side of the biconditional, and Vince vanishes into the dark will be the other side of the biconditional. So either the but or the if and only if could be the main connective of this sentence, but the comma there tells us that the sentence breaks here, making this a but sentence. And but is symbolized as and, so this is an and sentence. So we'll put Ronald will run on the left, and we'll put Sally doesn't sing if and only if Vince vanishes into the dark on the right. Ronald will run is atomic and it's R. So here we have Sally doesn't sing if and only if Vince vanishes into the dark. So if and only if, well, on one side we have Sally doesn't sing, and on the other side we have Vince vanishes into the dark. So this is a biconditional. We'll put Sally doesn't sing on the right, and Vince vanishes into the dark on the left. Vince, this is atomic for V. Sally doesn't sing, that's the negation of Sally will sing, and that becomes S. So there we go. That's 65. Let's look at 66. So we have Ronald will run if and only if neither does Sally sing nor does Vince vanish into the dark. So here we have an if and only if, and we have the neither nor. So this has to be a biconditional. We have on the one side Ronald will run, and on the other side we have neither does Sally sing nor does Vince vanish into the dark. So it works if it's a biconditional. And the neither nor, if this were a neither nor sentence, the neither would have to come at the beginning of the sentence. It'd have to be all the way out on the left-hand side out there. But it's not. So this is a biconditional. We'll put Ronald will run on the left, and neither does Sally sing nor does Vince vanish into the dark on the right. Ronald will run is atomic, it's symbolized by R. Neither does Sally sing nor does Vince vanish into the dark. So Sally doesn't sing and Vince doesn't vanish. So Vince, oops, that's a negation of Vince vanishes, which is V. And this is a negation of Sally sings, which is symbolized by S, and there's our sentence. And let's look at 67. So we have Vince vanishes into the dark unless Ronald will run, only if Sally will sing. So we have unless, and we have only if. So without the comma, this sentence would be ambiguous, and it could be this, Vince vanishes, unless this, Ronald will run, only if Sally will sing. Or it could be this, Vince vanishes into the dark unless Ronald will run, only if that. Well, the commas here, commas mark major breaks, so this is an unless sentence. So how do we symbolize unless sentences? Well, it tells us that it's a conditional, and it says that this doesn't happen. The only way, so it says this is going to happen, except if this instead happens. So the only way that this can fail to happen is when this happens. So if this fails to happen, then this happens. So if Vince doesn't vanish, what? Then this. Ronald will run only if Sally will sing. So vanish. Okay. So Vince doesn't vanish, that is a negation of Vince vanishes, and that's V. Ronald will run only if Sally will sing. That's a conditional. Only if flags the consequent, so we'll put Sally will sing in the consequent, leaving Ronald will run for the antecedent. So that's R and S. And we check that. Oops. And that's correct. Now it says correct equivalent because we could have symbolized this a different way. We could have instead said, we could have put this. So this is not V. If not V, then if R, then S. And we could have instead done it like this. Okay. Oh, whoops. So we're just we're transposing the conditional. We'll reverse the order of the conditional and change the negation. So we move the V to the consequent, and we move the R to the S to the antecedent, and then we stick the negation on the antecedent still, but then that's on the if R then S. And you've actually proved, you've done derivations where you've shown that if you have something like this, then this is true, and also if you have something like this, then that's true. We've proved, let's see, oh, well, there it goes. So, and this is what it would look like if we did it that way, and this is fine. So you can do it either way. You have these two sentences, the one on the one side of the unless and on the one on the other. You can put either into the antecedent and negate it, and the other goes into the consequent, and what you end up with are actually equivalent sentences that say the same thing. So it's because you're putting the negation on one of them. If this were a normal conditional, then you would have to figure out which is the antecedent and which is the consequent. But because of the way unless works, you take either one, put it in the antecedent, put the other one in the consequent, but then also put a negation into the antecedent, and you end up with sentences that say the same thing, as you've proved. So those are the three sentences that you had for this homework. If you have any questions, please let me know.